So check this out. George Soros is set to own the second largest chain of radio stations in America. He's bought up $400 million of debt in a company called Odyssey to gain a controlling stake. I wonder if this has to do with it being an election year and the Democrats aren't doing so well in presidential polling. We know how much they like to control information. Now, imagine a guy like Soros in control of 235 radio stations in 48 markets, some of that being AM talk radio. George is a billionaire who spends most of his money on pushing a far-left agenda. He calls it philanthropy, but if you know anything about him, it'd be hard to believe that he cares about people. Check out what he said in a 60 Minutes interview he did in the late 90s, talking about being a 14-year-old Jewish boy pretending to be a Christian in Hungary.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right. Yes.
I mean, that sounds like an experience that would send lots of people to the psychiatric couch for many, many years. Was it difficult?
Not at all. Not at all. Maybe as a child you don't see the connection, but it created no problem at all.
He seems to enjoy reminiscing about that time in his life. I do understand that he was only 14 years old and didn't want to die, but let's be honest. A 14-year-old in 1944 is at least like a graduate student in today's level of maturity. He has no guilt that he was hanging out with the killers while the people he shared a common history with were sent off to death camps. For a comparison, I'm still bothered about an error I made in the Kentucky High School State Championship baseball game 30 years ago. In that same year, 1994, Soros did an interview with the New York Times where he said this: "I am something unnatural. I'm very comfortable with my public persona because it is one I have created for myself. It represents what I like to be as distinct from what I really am. You know, in my personal capacity, I'm not actually a selfless, philanthropic person. I'm very much self-centered." Listen, George, we can see that you're not a selfless, philanthropic person. It's completely obvious. The only reason the left describe you this way is because you financially support their anti-philanthropic agenda. There is nothing about aborting babies and keeping criminals out of jail that says you care about the human race. Here's another quote from Soros printed in the LA Times in 2004. "I fancied myself as some kind of god," he once wrote. "If truth be known, I carried some rather potent Messianic fantasies with me from childhood, which I felt I had to control, otherwise they might get me in trouble." Not hard to believe that he had Messianic fantasies as a child when he was taking the belongings of his fellow Jews in Hungary and watching them being sent off to death camps. When asked by Britain's independent newspaper to elaborate on the statement, Soros said, "It is a sort of disease when you consider yourself some kind of god, the creator of everything. But I feel comfortable about it now since I began to live it out." Democrats celebrate this man.
We have been given an extraordinary blessing, and at this moment in time, our country needs us. And we need people like George Soros, who is fearless and willing to step up when it counts.
Now, George is 93 and likely won't be with us for much longer, but that doesn't mean his mission will stop. His 38-year-old son, Alex, is now running the operation. And get this, he's dating Huma Abedin. You remember her, don't you? She's the ex-wife of disgraced politician Anthony Weiner and Hillary Clinton's right-hand woman. They introduced their relationship the other day with a picture from Paris on Valentine's Day. For comparison, I'm more like this couple on Valentine's Day. Clinton and the Soros guys are part of the unelected cabal running the White House. And they're the same people who cheated Bernie out of the Democrat nomination in 2016 and Trump out of the presidency in 2020. And now, George and Alex will be in control of more than 200 radio stations across the country this election year. That's not good for us. I mean, that's not good for anyone, but a lot of people on the other side of the aisle don't see the danger. The left currently control most of social media, television, and newsrooms, the one place conservatives have dominated is talk radio. And Democrats have been trying to change that for decades. They try canceling the talent, boycotting the advertisers, getting rid of AM radios in cars, and now it seems buying up a bunch of radio stations is their next move. There is no limit to the length the far left will go to control us. In some related news, Microsoft has recently announced that they're going to team up with journalists to create the newsrooms of the future with AI. Today, Microsoft is launching several collaborations with news organizations to adopt generative AI. In a year where billions of people will vote in democratic elections worldwide, journalism is critical to creating healthy information ecosystems. And it is our mission, working with the industry, to ensure that newsrooms can innovate to serve this year and in the future. Translation: we want to create the narratives you all are fed, which is something the left is already good at. Trump is an election denier, but Hillary isn't. Hunter's laptop was Russian disinformation. January 6th was an insurrection. Trump called neo-Nazis very fine people. COVID wasn't created in a lab. The vaccine will prevent you from getting it. The police are hunting black people in the streets. The BLM riots were mostly peaceful. Men can become women. Men can have babies. George Soros is a philanthropist. And now the people who accuse us of misinformation are a few steps closer to total control. These liberal overlords want power beyond measure, all the while claiming it's about fairness, or saving the environment, or ending poverty, or stopping the rise of a dictator. As they plot and plan their path to pick up more power, they accuse anyone who stands in their way of the very things they're actually guilty of. And that's the simple truth. Hey guys, thanks for watching. And if you all want to support this channel, check out the links in the description, and let's keep putting some common sense back into the great debate.